Hello, welcome back. Right, as you can see from the title, today is Donkey Kong / Killer Gorilla, the BBC Micro version, because I don't think Donkey Kong ever came out on it, but there is a clone of it for the BBC Micro called Killer Gorilla, which is going to be included in this segment because it is basically Donkey Kong in all but name and main character. Spectrum's going first, Commodore 64, BBC Micro, Killer Gorilla, and then the Amstrad CPC version of what is it? Oh yeah, Donkey Kong. Now, I don't know, believe it or not, I've never played Donkey Kong. In any of its sort of forms. Never been a fan of the Donkey Kong games. Didn't have them on the N64. The only sort of Donkey Kong experience I've ever had is playing as Donkey Kong on Mario Kart. Now, you might think that's odd and that everyone in the world has played Donkey Kong. Well, I haven't. Until today, when I've given all 4 versions of these a try. It was just never the kind of game that really struck me. So anyway, we're going to get into it. As ever, please share your memories and thoughts, particularly of the versions that you know, and also what you make of the versions that you haven't played that I'm going to show you, and also your memories of it in the arcade, etc. I know it appeared a lot in like documentaries and stuff like that about Twin Galaxies records and stuff, and whatever other versions it may have come out on. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, right, here we go. Donkey Kong for the ZX Spectrum from Ocean kicks us off with these 4 versions. Now, I've defined my keys, QAOP in space. It's really, I think it's the only version that gives you that option that I've played anyway. So let's have a go. Now, my first impressions when I first played this, I played this for about 15 minutes now. Like I said, I've never ever played one of these games. Was that, oh dear, it doesn't look like it's going to be much good. But, you know, you've got to stick with these things and persevere. And, you know, to start with, it doesn't look anything like Mario, does he, as we sort of know him. But the game sort of does resemble Donkey Kong once you've sort of played it a bit. Now, obviously you can't... Come on, I can get rid of the hammer. Big old fat arse on him, Mario's got. Ah, haven't we all? Yeah, it doesn't look anything like Mario, and the graphics are sort of fairly basic compared to what you're going to see sort of coming up in the other versions. But having said that, you know, how does the game play? Well, you know, it's a little bit slow, but once you get the sort of hang of it, it's... Now, the collision detection like that, the jump, he doesn't seem to be able to jump as far on the Spectrum as he does on other versions, and you can find that a jump you'd have made on the Commodore or the Amstrad, you can't really sort of pull it off on the Spectrum, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. Doesn't break the game though, and you'll see that as things come down, you know, the order of how they sort of approach can change from sort of game to game. So sort of really sort of keeping you on your toes. One game about the barrels will come down the ladders like that, which they didn't do the previous times when I was playing it. Other times, you know, they'll just continue on their sort of merry way down. Now, the thing is it a good game? You know, I didn't know this back in the day, like I said, so as ever with these things, what I always do is I ask you for your thoughts and opinions as to whether or not you owned this back in the day, or whether you didn't. Now, the idea to cover Donkey Kong came from Christian Van Tilburg, my friend, Real Generic Demon on YouTube. I will link to his video of the Amstrad version of this. Please go and check it out. Who eulogised about how good the Amstrad version was, and asked me to sort of do this sort of comparison video. So there was actually a sequel as well released by Ocean called Kong Strikes Back, which I strangely have played and reviewed about 2 years ago now. Oh, I didn't want to collect the hammer. I suppose I should have wanted to. Bugger. I'm messing this right up, aren't I? Yeah, I've played that, but it didn't actually start life as a Kong game. I believe it was a sequel to a Mr. Do game. Whoa, that missed me just by a bit. But Ocean just slapped the old Kong name on it to obviously to make a bit more bunts. Look at his arse there. He's got a great big fat backside. Doesn't make him a bad person. Really sort of like struggling with this. It, like I say, I mean, it looks like it shouldn't be any good, but it does play quite well. You know, I've obviously got beginner's blues on this, hence, you know, I'm not any good at it. But you know, one of the better early arcade conversions, I think. Now, of course, Donkey Kong came out, I think, on absolutely everything. But like I say, I never ever had it. Yeah, the sort of jumping range is a bit narrower than on other versions, I think. How low can you go? Now, obviously, I appear to be playing a version. I've got my Spectaculator in 128K mode. You know, you will notice, of course, or you will know, of course, from my previous video that my Spectrum has died. So I used Spectaculator, the recording mode on that, which is fine, but it gives you a very small window that it records into. So what I've done is I've hooked the Specky up to the laptop. So the laptop up to the TV via HDMI, and recording that, pointing at the screen as if I was playing on a real thing. But there seems to be some more sound effects, etc. on this, as you can hear, which, you know, adds to it a little bit. Of course it does. But let's give this one more go to try and get off this first level. It's not looking like it's going to be great. Right, I'm going to go for it. I've warmed up now. Yeah, you see on 128. Now, I don't know if this is a version that was enhanced in later years for 128K sound, etc. But it's clearly, you know, it's, mind you, 1986 it came out, so yeah, could well be. And it's got that kind of subdued sort of music playing underneath the sound effects, which is really a shame. I'd sort of rather have the music playing rather than the sort of dodgy sort of notes playing there that you can... Oh, I'm going to die, aren't I? He can't fall more than 3 feet. Haha! Good Lord! Right, come on, make this the last one. So yeah, please share all your memories, your Donkey Kong memories, be it tabletop game, Game and Watch, spaz that right up, arcade, whatever version, because it obviously is a massive game, you know, well deserving of its place in history, etc. And we should discuss it. All right, we're going to move on now. Commodore 64 version. Okay, right, this is Donkey Kong for the Commodore 64. Whoops, just knocked the bottle over. I don't know who, well, I believe this was released by Nintendo, as it says there, but I'm not sure who released it on the actual system, whether it was Ocean or anyone else. Someone please fill in the facts for me there. Right, let's have a go at this. I've selected the baby sort of difficulty level, because you go any other sort of difficulty and he sort of starts lobbing things directly at your head instead of straight down. I found it far too difficult. I like this sort of intro. It's much more sort of defined than the Spectrum version was. Let's have a look. And you can see he looks like Mario. I'm going to have to turn that down a bit because that's quite annoying, that sort of ploddy sort of sound that he makes as he goes along. And you can't really hear it very well, but there is a kind of background tune playing, very subdued, behind. Now the movement is really quite sort of good. The jumps, he sort of jumps further on this than he seems to on the Spectrum version. So it means there's a few less of those sort of where you think you've cleared a barrel and you actually haven't. But I like the look of this. I think this plays really quite nicely. I've no clue what to do on this level, so I'm just going to wing it basically, because it's different from level 2 on the Spectrum version. And I've died. Right, so that was right. Okay, have I got to open all those little traps before I do anything? I think I might have to. Right, okay. So let's, well, come on, get out of the way, you swine. Now, the graphics on this are really, really nice, I think. They've got a really good sort of colourful, sort of arcadey sort of feel to them. And yeah, they're nice. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing on this screen. Let's try and... I think I'm going the right sort of way with this. Trying to get rid of all those traps so that the enemies fall down them instead of getting in my way. Now I can't actually get back down. Yes, I can get back down. Right, okay. So if he's not going to fall down there, is he? He's going to be a swine and refuse to fall down there. Oh, right, okay. I don't know what I'm doing. Game over. Right, okay. Let's try again. Now, I haven't watched any kind of playthrough on the C64 version to get any kind of idea. I thought it would be sort of identical, but I wasn't expecting that on the second level. This is the first time I've ever played the Commodore 64 version. And like I said, it's really sort of, well, what I can play of it is quite enjoyable. Let's try and get the sort of hammer thing. Right, so I've got the hammer. Now I can smash barrels as they sort of come down to me and get some more points. Now he's lobbing things sideways. That's not cricket. So when do you lose the... Right, okay, you lose it there. Okay. Right. Now for a bit of a tubby lard arse, so Mario... I was just about to say he's quite agile, and then he does that. Right, okay. Come on. Now the only thing I'm sort of going to find fault with is that sort of ploddy noise is a bit irritating. And because I've had to turn it down a bit, you can't really at all hear the sort of background tune that's playing. So, let's... Ooh, ooh. Ah! So, Commodore 64 fans, your memories of Kong Strikes... No, this is not Kong Strikes Back, is it? Of Donkey Kong for the system. I think it looks much, much better than the Spectrum version. Plays better. Although the Spectrum version wasn't bad at all. This is a lot fairer in sort of the collision detection, etc. is a lot fairer. But yeah, it's. I'm going to have to try and do this level again. Right, I haven't got a Scooby about this one. Can I jump over him? No, I can't jump over him. I don't even know what those enemies are. I don't seem to remember seeing them in the Spectrum version. Right, okay, that's as far as I could get. That was just to show you the Commodore 64 version. I was really quite impressed with that, despite being woefully inept at it. Let's move on and look at the BBC Speech Marks version of Donkey Kong. Right, here we are. Version number 3 is Killer Gorilla. Not Donkey Kong, but it is Donkey Kong in all but name, as you'll see. From Micropower for the BBC Micro. This is by Adrian Stevens, who gave us the fantastic Mr. E, the BBC version of a clone of Mr. Do, which I showed you in the previous video to this, and that was an absolutely fantastic game. Let's get into it. Right, the instructions are the game's exactly the same, apart from the main sprite is different, as you will see. Z and X for left and right, asterisk and question mark up and down, return to jump. Bit of a problematic keyboard layout there, because it means your right little finger is constantly having to rest on the return button, and then they're not redefinable, which is a bit of a disappointment. But anyway, let's get into the game. You can see wonderful, wonderful sounds again from the BBC. And look at this. Apart from the sprite being different, it is Donkey Kong. And they would never get away with it nowadays. I'm sure Nintendo's taking the piss lawyers would have been all over this back in the day. And quite right. But apart from that, it looks exactly the same. The levels play exactly the same. Seem to be designed exactly the same way. Sounds really, really nice. Plays really, really nice pace. And yeah, I would. I've sort of quite enjoyed what little time I've sort of had with this, because it really, really is yet again an example of you didn't jump there. Of a great game on the BBC Micro. Well, I wouldn't say great, but really, really enjoyable. It is very addictive, like the other versions that I've shown you. Obviously, you know, there are some graphical limitations with the BBC a bit, but in a way, I accidentally hit the flaming thing there. But in a way, you know, that gives these games their own sort of charm. You know, things are missing, etc. And going on about sort of like clones and unofficial sort of conversions of games and stuff, I've been looking. One of the videos coming up is going to be Zaxxon. Now, of course, it never came out on the BBC Micro, but there was a version of the game I found called Fortress, which I've had a quick play of, and which looks really, really, really good. So keep an eye out on the videos in the next couple of weeks for that. Now, there's a question I want to ask you. Now, these videos are supposed to be the games, etc. But where, you know, either clone versions of games exist, do you want to see just the official versions? Or are you happy to see the sort of like nearest thing, if you know what I mean? Now, for example, there's about 3 or 4 different Qbert games on the BBC Micro, and I actually find one of them, Qbert, spelled C-U-B-E-R-T, much more playable than Qbert, as it, which would appear to be a sort of official conversion. But sort of let me know if you want to see these unofficial ones alongside their licensed brethren, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the BBC Micro version of this is, you know, is very, very for God's sake, it's very, very decent, very playable, nice and chunky, colourful graphics that I love from the BBC. You can tell it's Donkey Kong. The main character, he looks like a bit of a wimp, not someone who'd be climbing up massive towers to fucking hell. Whoops, sorry. To rescue his beloved. But, you know, heroes come in all shapes and sizes. I think by the look of things, his mum got him dressed in the morning. No one wears green shorts and yellow t-shirts nowadays, do they? And it looks like he's been out in the sun too long. That wonderful pinkness that most BBC Micro sort of games have. Now, alright, I'll give that one more go, because it is fun. And then we'll move on and we'll finish up with the Amstrad version of Donkey Kong. Righty-ho, come on, we want to get on with it. Yes. Sorry, I got carried away there. I forgot I was still recording. Right, come on. Yes. This is yet another example of why you should own a BBC Micro. If you're thinking about it, go for it. Because it is really, 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 really good. Let's see. Right, I'm over there now. Don't come down the ladder, mate. Don't come down the ladder. Right. If you notice in all these versions that I've played, oh yes, right, I'm up there. Now this next screen, as you saw on the Spectrum level, this one, sorry, on the Spectrum version, this one knackers me right up. I can't work this one out at all, but I'm going to try. Exactly the same problem. That just plummets to his doom. Right, come on. Now, I know I can... What's the fucking point of that? Right, I've obviously got to try and jump on the platforms. This is a bit sort of Chucky Eggish, this level. Let's try, come on. Right, we know he can't sustain any... What the... Through the gap. Right. Okay, right, game over. I really enjoyed Killer Gorilla there. So let's try now, move on to the Amstrad version. See you in a sec. Okay, right, here we go. This is Donkey Kong for the Amstrad. I've got to play this on joystick. I haven't got a Scooby what the keys are. This one was released by Ocean as well, coded by Arcana, as you can see. Let's get on with it and see what this is like. Now, I've played it for about 5-10 minutes. And as with all the other versions, I'm actually quite impressed with it. Plays really nicely, basic sort of premise. Now, very nice and colourful on the intro screen here. You can see the graphics are really nice. And nice sound effects going on there. There's Kong up the top there, and you can see Mario's he's obviously been stung on the nose by a bee or something, because it's more sticky out than I sort of remember it being. But it moves really sort of quite nicely, and sounds really good. Oh, doesn't have the sort of annoying collision detection sort of thing that I identified in the Spectrum version. You know, sort of like nice leaps Mario is able to sort of make, which means, and it moves at a decent pace as well, not as fast. See, it's just given me 100 points for jumping over that, and then it says it killed me. This fucking thing. Yeah, this is a really good version. I'm trying my best. I'm not the best joystick user. Ah, come on. Right. Yeah, I knew you were going to be after me, mate. So yeah, again, it's got the... Oh, for God's sake. It's got the randomness, which is good. So it means you can't sort of like settle into a rhythm. And, you know, get like a sort of comfort zone, etc. Oh, right, okay, I'll do that that way next time around, because it does alter where the barrels and hazards appear from, etc. So we'll have one more go at this. I did manage to get onto the second screen on this, I promise you. Right, so now we've got a fairly sort of clear run to the top, but me being me, I will mess it up somehow. Hey, there we go. Yeah, this version is really good. I've enjoyed the Amstrad version, and it's good to see a version that sort of holds up on its own, as opposed to just like a sort of port of something else. You know, it seems really well made, and you know, well done to Ocean for doing that, because you fucker. Like I said, I got carried away a bit there, sorry. Like I said before, you know, some people are critical that a lot of conversions, etc., don't actually make use of the Amstrad sort of capabilities, etc. I think this is really a good game. Get up on the ladder, yes! Get up there before it disappears, yes! Now we're on to my favourite level, which I can't do, level 3. Oh, come on, Baz. Let's try and get past this on one version. Right, a really nice, colourful sort of layout and style here. This is really good. Ow, for clown. Right. Oh, I knew that's as far as I've ever got on that level. Right, okay. Oh, I thought that was going to be game over. I was getting ready to say a eulogy or something there. Right, come on. Right. Oh, balls. Oh, that's game over. Right, okay, to the outro. So there we go. Donkey Kong for the Amstrad CPC, Spectrum, Commodore 64 and Killer Gorilla for the BBC Micro. Now I did ask a question in the BBC Micro segment whether or not you were happy to see sort of like clone versions of games, like rip-offs if you like, included alongside. I mean, BBC Micro and all other machines have got about 700 different versions of Frogger and stuff like that. So if you're interested to see any of those alongside official versions, then please let me know. It might be interesting to change things up a little bit and do that. Might make the videos a bit longer, but who knows. But what did I think of them all? Right, well, the Spectrum version, once I got over the sort of way that it looked, and it don't look great, actually plays really quite nicely. The collision detection in it is a little bit unfair. I really liked the way that the Commodore 64 version looked. It looked and sounded really nice. Apart from the sort of irritating plop 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 of the footsteps as he went, which also the Amstrad version had. Nice big bold graphics on the Commodore. On the Amstrad they were much smaller, but really nicely defined. The Amstrad version was really playable. Real Generic Demon is the person that gave me the idea to make the video by eulogising about the Amstrad version, and I must admit it was really good fun. Killer Gorilla is yet another example of a great game on the BBC Micro. If you have not got a BBC Micro, go and get one. Or download the BBM emulator, because you know it's not cheap to buy a BBC Micro, I don't think, in a Turbo MMC thingamy. But you know it was a really fun game. Played to the strengths of the machine. Obviously, it didn't have the Mario character. The guy in his little green shorts and his yellow T-shirt. Still haven't quite gotten over that. I bet he's still traumatised by it now to this day. But overall, I enjoyed every single version of that, and I'm not going to really say one was better than the other, etc. They all had their own strengths and weaknesses, and they all played really well, which is, I'm not going to say it, Michael Salisbury, which is the main thing, isn't it? Right, okay. There we go. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, as ever what? Oh yeah, join in with the discussions, etc. Because that is the name of the game. Nearly said it. Thank you. Bye.